Welcome to InDesign training. Our training is going to focus on the Creative Cloud environment. However, the tricks, techniques, skills that you learn can be applied to previous editions of InDesign, including InDesign 6. To get started, let's look at the InDesign working environment. One of the things that I think students find very off-putting is the view that you can have in InDesign. And so this is your application view, and you can see down into your desktop. If that is not a view that you like, go up to Window, and instead of having just the application bar, you want the application bar and application frame. And so that frame kind of adds that black neutral background so you're not seeing down into your desktop. Again, if you do prefer the more open view, go back to Window and uncheck Application Frame. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and leave both the frame and the bar up as we navigate. Just want to point out something that is a unique feature in Creative Cloud, and that is you can sync your preferences and settings through your Creative Cloud account, so that if you have specific workspaces, specific settings, specific libraries that are unique, you could use them at different workstations, at home, at school, and just sync those through your Adobe ID. Again, this is a Creative Cloud option. Let's look at some things you can do with the interface. Most of the background changes that you want to make with preferences are through InDesign and then Preferences. And so let's just go through some of these that you might want to look at, that you might want to change. And let's start with our interface. The interface is the overall appearance and color theme is one of the things in there. So if you are used to earlier editions of InDesign, this might be a more comfortable environment for you. You are welcome to switch to that. Or maybe you like the darker working environment. It's really your call, and you can kind of change it with each project. I am a big fan of this environment, the neutral gray environment. I think it just makes colors stay more true for me when viewing. Again, personal preference and what you are used to. Another thing that you can change in this view is your floating tools panel, and that's this over here. So you can set that as a single column as it is now. You can change it to a double column. Here's what that looks like. Again, if you're used to earlier editions of InDesign, that is what the tool, kind of a traditional look for the tool panel. And you can also view it as a single row. And the single row moves it above that application bar. And you can move it in different locations, just depending on what your preference is, dock it in different ways. Notice you can also use the pull off and the tear off to do this kind of same method of making your tool panel kind of unique to what you want to have that look like. And you'll find that throughout InDesign that there's kind of several ways to do the same thing. And I will try to point those out to you as you go. The next area I would encourage you to look at is units and increments. This is where you're going to set your ruler units. Most of the time you'll be working in picas. If that is off-putting for you, go ahead and switch to something more familiar, inches. You can kind of work through all of them at the same time. So if you know you're going to be designing for a client who's given you specific sizes of objects for a spread in inches, you don't have to change your rulers to inches. And I'll show you in one of our future lessons about how you can go ahead and plug in one value and it automatically changes to whatever you're working on. I also recommend keeping strokes set as points. That's the most familiar unit of measurement used in journalism. Next, let's click on our grids. So let's look at some ways that you can set your grids up specific to you. First is your baseline grid. That's kind of the grid going below everything. I typically use my document grid rather than my baseline grid, but again, it's up to you. So you can change the color of how that views. You can decide what you're going to have that relative to. So if you want to start at the top of the page, or if you have an internal margin, if you'd like it to start it there. Where your increments are going to be, so this is set at 12 points. Document grid, and again, I can change my color if I want to. I have mine set up for a grid line every 1 pica with 2 subdivisions. So basically, everything is a half a pica apart on my document grid. This is a helpful little icon. It's kind of a sneaky little feature here. If you are working in a design and you kind of need to see your grids on top of everything, all you need to do is come into your preferences and uncheck grids and back, and then your grids will appear on top. That's helpful when you're aligning things like photos to text in your design. And then you hit OK. So that gets us started on basically how we get started on InDesign and navigate it.